Good evening and welcome to another live YouTube edition and on Twitter of the Magpie Circle. It's good to have you back again, Leigh. I think it's fair to say that your performance last time, I think it ran Anthony Hopkins a close second for Best Actor Oscar Award. I have to say it was quality, and people have still been talking about it ever since. We've had a few technical gremlins already, haven't we? But you're here now.
Yep.
Delighted to have you on board. I suspect tonight will be fairly lively, and good that you were actually able to see the game in the flesh rather than on a stream. Good to have you back.
Yeah, it's good to be back. I've had my haircut as well, if you can't tell. I suppose nobody's picked it up yet.
Yeah, Mark Reek says maybe he has a hair injury. EJ Defiance says Leigh's still got a man bun. Mark goes off, shave it off, it solves the problem. Okay. Right. Before I start reading a few things out and chatting with you, I want to read something out that I've received today. Don't normally do much anonymously, but I know this person very well, and they are, I would put them in the top 1% of all Notts fans. This is what he had to say. I think I would just listen tonight, Paul. I have read Ian Burchnall's article in the Post. How can we pick two managers running who don't appear to be able to motivate, kick players up the backside? I will be glad to have a break from Notts. It's been 3 years of nothing. No fight, no leaders, little quality. They leave and are replaced with poorer players. Poor managers, boring, unentertaining football. The team gets worse each season. Good luck with the show. Now, I've also been contacted by quite a few other fans privately in the last 24 hours. And we know that the owners watch this show, senior executives watch this show. And we are already seeing, I think, fairly substantial disengagement with the club, fracturing of fans, filtering into basically ranging from Saki and Burchnall now to others saying we need a complete rebuild. You can't judge the new coaching team until they've had a season, get their own players in, etc., etc. And I think it's going to get worse. And I'm also a bit concerned, and I try to be objective as you do on this show. And I kind of want to deal not so much with my opinions, but more with what we can say are facts, and people can then interpret them as they wish. Ian Burchnall was undoubtedly presented in a light by the club, where the phrase highly regarded coach was mentioned on more than one occasion. A kind of Englishman abroad, highly regarded coach, achieved great success coming back to England. And I want to again really just put out some facts, because I think the club is going to face an extremely difficult time. And I think as a result of a decision made to remove Neil, the club, its owners, fan base are already at a crossroads that it may not have needed to be, but that crossroads is upon us. The view is that Ian will, given time, transform the fortunes of the club, playing a certain style of football, winning matches, and delivering promotion as part of a long-term project on his 4-year contract. I think we need to spell out exactly Ian's record so far, because what he is going to have to achieve at Notts County is something he has never done before in his managerial or coaching career. And I know that there are people out there that are very convinced he will turn the fortunes of this club around. At Osterson's, after inheriting the team from Graham Potter, he did well, and they finished in, I think it was 6th position. The following season, able to put his own stamp on the team, his only full season in the Allsvenskan, the Swedish Premier Division. The facts of the matter are he won 5 matches, drew 10, and lost 15 in a 30-game season, and finished 12th, which on the face of it, finishing 12th don't sound too bad. There are only 16 teams in the Swedish top flight. At Viking Stavanger a few years earlier, the club were relegated rock bottom. Now, I want to, for the sake of balance from the way Ian was presented as a very successful coach, I want everyone to understand that what we now expect of Ian is to take 80 points in a season, playoffs, title, which is a huge ask. A huge ask. We hear a lot of talk about performances week in and week out, but it's results that will decide his destiny at this football club. I was a little concerned. You've done a story today, Leigh, and I think there was a quote that was attributed to him in which he said that in the last 8 games before he arrived, Notts had won 2 matches, and in the 8 matches that he has taken charge of, that Notts have also won 2 matches. And there's kind of an inference there that it is, broadly similar. It's not broadly similar, is it? Under Ian, we've won 2, drawn 1, lost 5. In the 8 games that Neil, if we're comparing a like-for-like sequence of 8 games, we've won 2, drawn 4, lost 2. We won a FA Trophy quarter-final. We lost an FA Trophy semi-final with each of those 2 managers, if you wish to throw that into the mix. And I also want to draw attention to clubs that have changed managers this season. And because clubs in the top 10, 3 or 4 of those clubs have changed managers. Here's the stats. Here's the stats from other clubs who changed managers. James Rowe, Chesterfield, won 16, drawn 5, lost 6. Simon Rusk, Stockport, comes from an academy background, first full-time job. Won 11, drawn 7, lost 3. Bromley, who changed their manager at the same time as we did. Andy Woodman was appointed. Won 4, drawn 2, lost 2. Every one of those managerial changes has had a desired effect. Done so on quite a concerted time frame. I think Stockport is very similar to our situation. Jim Gannon was a surprise departure. I also want to throw into the mix our recruitment, because part of the moving forward, the new regime, how we potentially can be successful next season, I think we would all agree that there will be a reasonable churn of players in the summer. And all the information points to not having a data ball, money ball approach, of which Ian Burchnall is part. And Richard Montague, we are led to believe, is kind of the person mandated with the responsibility to head up that video and data recruitment. I don't know if we're doing anyone a disservice. The club haven't really confirmed that recruitment model. All of the above worries me. You would know that I have banged on for weeks about the vibes coming out of the club, that there seems to have been no urgency, no intensity, no real desire to compete, maintain, and deliver a playoff spot. And clearly it's gone very, very, very wrong in these last few weeks. My view would be, if the club miss out on the playoffs, and I for one still haven't given up, I think there's enough in this squad. Cue hundreds of messages now to come streaming in saying I don't know what I'm on about. But, you know, I'm not a quitter. I've never given up on anything in my life. And we shouldn't be giving up on the playoffs now, irrespective of how you think we are performing on a match-to-match basis. 45 minutes is a long time in football. We've got 8 or 9 games left to go. Playoffs are all about momentum. All about momentum. So this tide can change very quickly. I don't see a great deal of conviction, belief from people that you would expect would be showing that desire and belief to chase down these playoffs. I think the club has a monumental issue when it's going to go to market with season tickets. The club made an announcement earlier last week talking about they were getting ready to do it and all the rest of it. I think that is it is fraught with difficulty at the moment, and I think the club needs to seriously consider how it's going to communicate with fans in the next few weeks. You know, I think you, Charlie Slater, if it was me, I would put up Richard Montague and Ian Burchnall together, and I'd say, right, sit down with Charlie Slater, explain this model, because we're all guessing a little bit, but there are clearly huge doubts about whether this model can actually work. And I think it's going to get very nasty. I think it will get very ugly. Ian has an unfortunate way in communicating to fans. There was a phrase, and I kind of played the video back a dozen times last night, because as soon as he said it, I thought, that sounds very weird. I'm trying to understand it. And when he was asked at the end of the interview about, you know, moving forward, playoffs, where do we go from here? His actual words, these are the actual words: we have got to look very hard at the videos. We have got to look very hard at the videos. I've absolutely no idea what that means. Absolutely no idea. I really don't. And I don't know whether there's a disconnect in the way Ian is looking to get his messages across and players. For me, I thought the last 20 minutes last night, we were a beaten, broken team. Played well first half. You show me someone who says we had a great 30 minutes, a great 45 minutes. We played really well first half. I'll come straight back at you and say, bet you lost the game. Bet you lost the game. You know, performances are irrelevant right now. Results. Look at Torquay. 2 games, 98th minute, point against us, go to a win last night. And the point of part of the point of all of this is, as an absolute base level, Notts need to make the playoffs this season for the sake of Ian Burchnall. Because if they don't, the time he will be allowed to do whatever he is required to do will be minimal. Will be minimal. And if I may, I just want to pick up on one or two points. One or two people use the analogy with Sam Allardyce's first games. It's a completely false comparison. Sam Allardyce had already managed in English football. He'd already had a team in the playoffs. So we know he can win games. And he'd had a bit of a falling out. He became available and we took him. And fundamentally, Notts were in a terrible decline when he came here. Everyone seems to conveniently forget that Ian got a job when Notts were fourth, was it? Comfortably in the playoffs, a position that was cemented even more when Dover's record was expunged. Now, that has a long since evaporated. Fans, and I know because we spoke late last night when you were coming up on in the car, and you said, "Oh, I've got into a bit of a spat in the car park, on Twitter and all the rest of it." I'm telling you, you ain't seen nothing yet. You ain't seen nothing yet. I think this club is at a real crossroads right now. And if I understand people saying you've got to give Ian time. I understand people saying get his own players in. But what evidence is there that getting your own players in? Where is the evidence that Ian will be able to turn this around? Refer back to the last season at Ostersund's. The club presented as he finished 12th. They won five games all season. They were significantly worse than they were the previous season. So there wasn't a development there. That is huge pressure on a manager that has never managed in England before, where he is going to be expected to win between 25 and 30 games to get us promoted. Anything else ain't good enough. It ain't good enough. Okay. There goes the diatribe. Got that off my chest. Leigh, your thoughts?
Spectacular.
What do you reckon, pal?
Well, where do we start? I mean, listen, I think, and I said this a couple of weeks ago, I am worried. I'm worried for a number of reasons. And I think the biggest thing that I've noticed with the change in manager is the fan base has become split. So you now have your pro Ardley and your pro Burchnall. And I don't think that's ever healthy for a football when you split the middle of the fan base. And it has become split. I've noticed that on social media. So again, we're talking about the decision and whether it was the right one to make. Now, I think we were pretty much all in agreement that perhaps Neil should have been given to the end of the season. Although, to be honest, and I said this before, I regardless of what Neil would have achieved this season, whether he'd taken him up or whether he failed in the playoffs or finished outside the playoffs, he would have gone anyway. That's my theory. I think he would have gone. This head coach model would have been brought in.
I agree.
But I think my biggest concern overall, and if we take it back, this set of events or the chain of events, and I've always been a big believer that ultimately your recruitment of players, if it is bad, it will catch up with you. At some point during the season, it will catch up with you. Now, I've had conversations. I remember when this squad was first put together, and I had so many fans tell me it was the best squad in the National League. Now it's the worst squad in it. Now it's among the worst squad in the National League. And basically the argument was that Neil wasn't getting the best out of the players. That was all I heard. Neil's not getting the maximum out of this squad, which is the best in the league. Now, I think that's proven to be a fallacy, and I'll tell you why. Because Eli Sam, 2 managers now, Ian and Neil, not convinced. Ruben Rodriguez can't even get in the team. Jordan Barnett can't get even in the team. The fact that we are still We are, what, 8 games left to go with the season? The best players, the most reliable players, are the ones that are already here.
Yeah.
So this whole, what we are seeing now, if the recruitment had been spot on and what we've taken what we had last year, and it does annoy me when people say Notts were dreadful to watch last season. They weren't. They were this joint second top goal scorers in the league and had one of the best defences. It was almost a perfect team. It was perhaps missing, I would say, a little bit of legs. And as we got found out in the playoff final against Harrogate.
Yeah.
That was the perfect opportunity, given everything that was happening with the pandemic, knowing that they were perhaps never going to keep Christian Dennis. It was the perfect opportunity to put a real marker down. And we didn't do it. We went and signed a centre-forward who'd been playing in Bulgaria, from Belgium, brought up standard age. I think he scored 6 goals. And we signed Ruben Rodriguez, Kasper Sloth, who lasted a month. And that, along with some of the other signings, just haven't worked. If I always ask this question to the supporters I talk to, name me one player we've brought in this season who's made the team better. One player. Can't do it. Not one player we have brought in this season has made the team better. Now, what does that tell you about all the money that's been spent, all the money that's been frittered away? How have we got into a position where 8 games left of the season, we are looking at the team and thinking not one player has made the team any better? Serious questions to answer. And this is my big worry, that it wouldn't matter if it was Ian Burchnall, Jose Mourinho, Neil Lardley, or whoever. If you have got a recruitment model in place that I can't offer any encouragement. I can't say, well, we've brought these 2 in who've done really well, so that gives me hope for next season. Because we haven't. We haven't done that. So when people say to me, next season, it's a clean slate, what gives, if we're going to have this mass turnover of players that everyone expects is going to happen, what gives people any encouragement on the back of what the recruitment we've seen this year that the club are going to get it right anyway? So it really doesn't matter in terms of, I personally think it doesn't really matter who the manager is. If you have got a process where players are chosen through video analysis, data and stats, and everyone will say, well, Callum Roberts is great. You can't dine out on Callum Roberts forever. That's 1 out of how many we made? 10? So at some point, there needs to be a realisation setting in. And when we talk about Chesterfield and Stockport, if you look at what they did, Simon Rusk took over. They went out and signed, towards the back end, Paddy Madden, of course. Diamond necklace. All right, 250 grand, 3.5 grand a week. A lot of money. But do you know what? I think he's already scored five goals in 8 or 9 games or something ridiculous like that. Because they knew what they were getting. A lot of the signings we've made this year, they're all toss of a coins. I couldn't tell you when we signed Eli Sam or Ruben Rodriguez or Kenton Richardson or whoever. Everyone, I couldn't tell you and say, he has got a good track record, he's got a good pedigree, he'll give us a chance. I've not been able to say that with any of the signings. I think Jake Reeves comes in for some unfair stick sometimes, I have to say. But the recruitment model poses some serious questions. Because I'm looking last night at the game and I'm thinking, right, okay. And people say, I got asked a question about the 5-3-2. I think personally, Ian doesn't want to play 5-3-2. I think he wants to play 4-3-3. If you look at all his coaching videos that he's done, he wants to play 4-3-3. But he hasn't got the players, the right position. My biggest argument, my biggest fear, what should be happening this summer is Ian Burchnall should be going to Richard Montague, wherever, and saying, right, I want to play 4-3-3. You get me holding midfield player, 2 8s, 2 inverted forwards, if he's going to play inverted forwards, or 2 attack-minded wing forwards, as you want to call them, and a number 9. And then you build it around that. The recruitment this year, they brought in Ruben Rodriguez. I still, even now, and we're like, 7 months down the line, what is his best position? Why did we sign him? Do you understand what I'm saying? It's almost like we've gone out and bought these players on the basis that we've got them because they might come good and there might be a diamond in the rough. But actually, when you look at in terms of where they play in the team, Eli Sam's brought in as a centre forward. Every time he's played at centre forward, he's miles off it. And the fact that Ian Burchnall and Neil Ardley have both looked at him now, and the other worrying thing for me is they're on long contracts. How are the club, right? If they're not going to be used, and Ian's pretty much, we left Eli out last night. I don't think Ruben, is going to be a long-term solution. So you're left with 2 players there that, how are you going to get rid of them? Unless you pay the contracts up. It's a lot of money. There are so many flaws with the recruitment this season, and it's a big concern. It's a huge worry, because I don't think it really matters if you're going to recruit by a collaborative approach, as we're told what it is.
Yeah.
I think Ian's going to have to really put his foot down. He's going to have to really put his foot down in the summer.
Right.
It's not been good enough. And honestly, I can't express how disappointed I am with the caliber of players and the money that's been spent and the rewards that the club have got in return, because they've got nothing.
Right. Loads of good points. I want to develop those. Equally, I want to now go through all the observations, questions we've had so far. Fans show, let's give them their say. Paul Hawksworth, regular on the show. Evening, Paul. I think it's only 2 weeks ago you were laughing at me in disbelief when I suggested we had no chance of reaching the playoffs. Wonder what the atmosphere is like in the club today. I still believe we have a chance of making the playoffs. Games will tell you that we do. Games in hands will tell you that we do. Whether we do actually achieve that is, of course, a very debatable point at the moment. Colin Metcalf, yes, our owners saved us, but honestly, I have no confidence in their recruitment model or anything that is happening at the club at the moment. What's there to make youngsters want to watch Notts? That's a very good point about young fans, and I want to come to that a bit later. George Harvey says Leigh looks better than Grealish. Kevin JS,
not sure about that. I won't mind his money.
You mean you're not on the same? Can't believe it. Kevin Duska Jr., what the hell is going on with this squad? Is Burchnall terrible, or were they overperforming under Neil? Leon Barber needs some sort of communication from the owners. Club is drifting badly. What are the long and short-term goals? Who is signing players? Why was Burchnall chosen? What's happening today? It's a good. I think that is a what's happening today to the academy. He's asking. Paul Hawksworth. Wow, you've been on 2 minutes, Paul. Agree with everything that's been said. Anthony Blackmore, highly regarded by whom? Richard Hawksworth. I'm not a toy to be played with or to be experimented on with methods that haven't been tried before at this level. 5 years at this level could finish us off. Leon Barber, are the owners in this for the long term, Leigh? Mark Leach, sorry to say, but in Burchnall we found our new Fullerton, and I can see a lot of fans boycotting games in protest of what's happening to the club. PJ Defiance, IB is just one step up from a school PE teacher. He has not impressed me in any interview he has done. We need a manager. Paul Hawksworth, desire and passion required immediately. Keldsdyke, I think what the owners have missed is you need a certain type of manager and players to get out of this league. If we get out of this league, then will be the time to adapt to the owner's vision. Andy Newham. I have to say that I was never part of the Ardley Out Brigade, and I'm not part of the Burchnall Out Brigade now. But for me, I feel I need to take a break from watching the streams. Richard Hawksworth again, the owners are gambling. It's a massive risk, the approach they are taking. When the Knots, do you think that the owners really were prepared to write off this season when IB was brought in? We'll come back to that one next, Leigh, because I think it's a good point. Stephen Orton, spot on, Paul. Dave Woolley, the playoffs are only any good if you win the final. My point always with these, Dave, is you have no idea whether you will win the final or not. You know, no one thought Harrogate were going to win it. Hang on. Let's Richard Hawksworth. We have laid down and accepted our fate this season. We will finish the season with a whimper, and I'm afraid the owners need to take responsibility for this. Kevin J.S. Duska Jr. We shouldn't be giving up on the playoffs at all, but we should be wondering whether IB can actually engender momentum. That's the real question. Now, remember, Kevin was vainly asking about whether he sponsors the goalkeeper, Turney, who clearly it ain't going to be a match-worn 2 shirts. I think it would be a great idea if the club's commercial department said to Kevin, we'll give you the Luke Steele sponsorship, because then you can get a couple of match warns. You know, let's see whether they do. MF25. Burchnall has set us up very well the last couple of games to create chances and not allow the opposition many chances. 4 shots on target against us in the last 2 games have been 4 goals. Burchnall can take the horse to water, but he can't make it drink, says MF25. Les Brad said on the podcast that 10 people were involved in the signing of Cal Roberts, not including any staff we know about. Matt Ben Knotts, can we not look forward rather than backwards? Please, nobody has any patience anymore. I despair. A Chandler, we are a football betting company experimentally trying out theory within a real life football club. A Chandler, this is commerce, not football. I think you might mean it the other way around. Matt Ben Knott, Sam Allardyce stats, first 22 games, 1-2, drawn 5, lost 15, patience required. I think we did pick up on that earlier. SB, when we were winning 2-1 against Torquay, I turned to my dad and said, if we don't win this, we are done this season, as we put so much into that game. I think that's a very fair point. 80 Clark, do you feel the timing of the appointment of IB has highlighted the inexperience of the owners? I feel that IB was brought in earlier than they anticipated, as they feared he may have gone elsewhere. I'll pick up on that point. I know a lot of people in professional football, and I mean a lot of people. I am entirely unaware of any other concrete similar position job that Ian was offered in professional football, full stop. Okay. MF25. Now, that don't mean his agent wouldn't be trying it on in negotiations, because that's what happens. MF25, I think the recruitment model was probably held back by Ardley, even though he seemed to be okay with it. It's not what he signed up for as manager of Notts County. John Parr, if the manager can't get the fans excited, then surely players must feel the same looking that way. Anthony Blackmore, has IB really been given a 4-year deal? SB, don't think much of Steele. When is Slocum back? Joe Johnson, here we go, another hour bashing IB. When are the players going to step up and take some responsibility? 3 big central defenders. Well, I wouldn't have thought that Mr. Turner is that small, nor for that matter Connell Rawlinson, and none of them can defend crosses. That, I think, kind of brings us up to speed. So you can tell it's been busy on the old chat board, Leigh. Do you think, what do you think went through the owners' minds with the change? Do you think they made the change because they wanted to strengthen the chances of going up? Do you think they basically felt they just needed to put a longer term philosophy in place?
as I said, I mean, I think this change was coming anyway. So,
yeah, but it's the timing that has materially thrown the club into a huge flux. Because if Neil stays till the end of the season, we either make the playoffs and don't go up, or we do. Ian Burchnall comes in, right? Ian comes in. He's got a season then, no problems at all.
Yes,
As
and
it is,
I agree.
If we don't make the playoffs, he's starting in the eyes of the fans on minus 20 points in September. He is.
I know. I agree. I think the timing. Of whether you were pro Ardley or not, I think the timing of the decision was strange. I've got to be honest, but I personally believe that this was always on the cards, but I agree we perhaps should have waited until the end of the season because, as I said 2 weeks ago, already Ian is already fighting a battle to win hearts and minds. You know, where had he come in the summer, you say, okay, Neil didn't take us up, or he took us up, but we want to go in a different approach. That's fine. We give Ian a full summer, plenty of time to train the players, get his methods across, sign the players for the system that he wants to employ, and then you know we take it from there. But unfortunately, with the timing of the decision, Ian was expected to hit the ground running. That hasn't happened. We've now dropped to 10th, and already the fans are saying, "Well, what are we going to do now? You know, let's get rid of him. Bring somebody else in."
Right. Anthony Blackmore's just fired a question in that I want to answer and put a bit more flesh on the bone to give context. So Anthony's asked, have you invited the Reach brothers to be on this chat? Answer, yes. Communicated with them directly, probably 3 or 4 months ago. There is an open invitation for them to come on this show any time that they want. That's point 1. Point 2, I exchanged messages with Ian Burchnall on the day of his arrival to invite him onto this show. He replied back to me to say, let me get my feet under the table and we'll see what we can do. Point 3, over the past few months, I've also had periodic messages on Twitter that I've ignored with saying, get a current player on. Why can't you get a current player on? Have you spoken to the club? I don't want to embarrass the club. I approached the club. I went through the formal communication channels to Nick Richardson, who, as you would know, without getting too technical for people, the communications manager at a football club coordinates, processes all media requests and does so in a proper corporate professional manner. I asked Nick, I would like to work with the club with this show. I would like to have current players on. Of course, not every week. I don't know, once a month. Yeah, because you as fans want to hear from the players in a slightly different environment. And the same goes for the other YouTube show that's very well done by Notts County Talk. Yeah, I'm sure they would as well. Nick wrote back to say that it had been discussed by the club, but they felt they could not cooperate. There were some garbled reasons that I genuinely didn't really understand. One of them was said to be commercial reasons. Well, this podcast shells out, I don't know, whatever it is, 600 quid to sponsor 2 players. They put VAT on that. So if that's not a commercial sponsorship, I don't know what is. But as I say, I am the last thing in the world I want to be doing are hatchet jobs on the club. Yes, this is an independent show, but it is designed to give a flavour and insight on behalf of our supporters. The reality is when the chips are down, you need a few friends. And clearly it was exactly the right thing for the club to do last week with you, Leigh, and BBC, getting you down the training ground, trying to open dialogue. I could get, or I certainly could have done, 6-7 weeks ago, quite a few of the players to come on this show. But I don't want to embarrass the club. I don't want to embarrass the players. The players as individuals are happy to come on this show. However, the club seem to prefer it that they don't. So in answer to somebody's earlier point about Ian Burchnall bashing and all the rest of it, absolutely not. Absolutely not. There is a forum. The Notts County Duck would much rather have officials, players, management, coaches from the club to engage in debate on here. I'm telling you, the club is going to have a monumental PR challenge in the coming weeks and months, and it is going to need every single friend it has got. And as I said earlier in the programme, the first, and I believe you put a request in, I believe Charlie has, the first thing I'll be doing, I will be wheeling out Richard Montague and Ian Burchnall together and get them to give you jointly their vision for recruitment. Because we don't know what it is, really. Who has final say? Do we scout players anymore? Do we judge them purely on video? None of us know. None of us know. And I have a horrible feeling. Clearly, part of the reason that Ian was appointed is that he would be prepared to acquiesce and work under a system whereby players are recruited outside of his direct remit, and he works with them and he improves them. My understanding, and you've already made a point very professionally and succinctly, I think Ian and Maurice Ross are going to have a very different interpretation of what they think is recruitment to the one Ian acquiesced to at the job interview. I foresee problems with that system. MF25, how many teams are open with their transfer policy to that extent, though? We're not talking about revealing transfer targets. We're talking how a new system, and I have seen Brentford talk extensively about their Moneyball approach. I've seen Barnsley talk about it. It is a policy of communication with supporters. And the academy has to come into this. Where is the academy or not going to fit in? Because this becomes a consequence of us not making the playoffs. We're probably going to get howls of derision. PhD Vines, have you tried reaching out to get Neil Ardley on, Paul? Let's just say I'm inching closer to getting Neil on. Okay, now that would be an interesting one. So that was all from Anthony Blackmore's question. Dave Woolley, they won't come on now. George Harvey, I'm all for owners having a philosophy and identity going forward, but prioritising long-term vision over short-term vision, brackets, games in hand and touching distance off top spot is an abysmal decision. George Harvey, it's an unbelievably naive call. The cost of staying in this league for years is detrimental. Get out of this division and then plan. You cannot plan for long-term at this level. George Harvey, Ardley may or may not have got more out of this squad, but they were such a tight-knit, united group who would have run through walls for each other. I firmly believe he would have turned it around. AD Clark, goals win games. Everybody knew that by not replacing Dennis and Thomas with experienced, proven strikers. This would be the downfall. I recall Leigh predicted this at the start of the season. When the Notts, videos and stats alone don't tell you the character of a player or their desire to play for NCFC. Richard Hawksworth, good job. Stockport had advanced data I think there's a hint of sarcasm in this one. Good job. Stockport had advanced data analytics capability. Got it out eventually at their fingertips to identify Paddy Madden. Stephen Orton. Wootton is out of form, which is a big problem. For a Paddy Madden. Okay, I think we're up to date with all the observations and questions. We go, blimey, 45 minutes gone already. We go to Altrincham Saturday. They've lost 4 on the bounce. I think the phrase "they're all must-win games" was used by the manager to you, or in an interview. What do you expect Saturday? And do you think victory Saturday regains a not insubstantial amount of lost ground, or do you think the die is now starting to be cast, Leigh?
Well, I'm expecting a win, first and foremost, because we're at the stage now where we can't afford to fall any further behind. And I think once 3 points becomes a 6-point gap, and then it becomes a 7, then that's it, really. So the game on Saturday is absolutely huge in that respect. I know we've got a couple of games in hand, but you still got to go out and win those. So, they're never bankers, are they? So it's a game that I think, and I hate using the phrase "must win it," but it is. It's a cliche, as Mark Stallard once said to me. It's only a cliche because it's true, and he's right. It's an absolutely massive game at the weekend. The one thing that does give me encouragement is I thought the performance against Torquay, certainly last night, between the boxes, chances created, and just talking about the spirit of the players. Now, this won't have, I don't think anybody will know this, but I'm told that yesterday, and this gives you an insight into the kind of group they are, that Ben Turner's grandma died. It was her funeral yesterday. Do you know what he did? He missed her funeral to come and play for Notts County at Eastleigh. So that gives you an insight into the kind of group they are. Great group of lads. Struggling a little bit. I'd definitely say they're struggling a little bit in terms of confidence and what happens in both boxes. I see Carl Wootton getting a lot of stick, but he is, as I said last night, he's still comfortably the best centre forward at this football club by a million miles.
Yeah,
and it's interesting. I was talking to somebody recently who's a head of recruitment at another National League club, and he said he's best striker in the league, and we should have bought him. So for me, Carl Wootton is going through a bit of a barren spell. I think, unfortunately, where it's been shown up is that last season, if he was going through a barren spell, we had somebody else step up the plate, Christian Dennis or a Wes Thomas, and we haven't had that this year. So when Kyle's going through a really barren run, it really shows. It really shows, because he is the one who is effectively being left with the entire burden of scoring goals this year, and he's only 24. He's not an experienced pro. He's not got 1,000 league games under his belt. He's still a baby, and I feel so sorry for him at the moment, because he's getting the chances. And ideally, what he needs, what he does, to coin a better phrase, he needs one to go in off his arse. That's what he needs, just to get him up and running again. But in terms of the players, in terms of their spirit, and in terms of how united they are in the dressing room, I've got no problems with that at all. I just think there's, as Ian said at the weekend, and this, to be fair, it's the same thing that Neil said when he was here. In being defensively switched on at set pieces, crosses, the amount of goals we've conceded from crosses and set pieces this year, frightening. And of course, unfortunately, the goals have dried up as well. It wouldn't be so bad if you had faith that other players would step up to the fore. But unfortunately, you've really got only, Kyle, really, you're looking at as somebody who you'd say is a main goal threat. Callum Roberts is out. He was somebody you thought could get double figures. Outside of that, and this is another huge concern, I don't see where the goals are going to come from. I genuinely don't see where the goals are going to come from. Eli Sam can't even get in the squad. So there, you're another striker down already. Enzio can't get in the team. And I don't think he's the kind of player who can be dropped in and out willy-nilly. I think he's very much a rhythm player. He needs to be playing every week. And then you've got Lewis Knight still trying to adapt, still trying to learn the division, what's required of him. And you've got Jimmy Knowles, who great against Woking, but 2 or 3 games later, not being able to kind of reproduce that ruthlessness that he did against them. So it's really difficult at the moment. And this is what I mean when I say recruitment always catches up with you. It invariably does. And this is what's happening. What we're seeing now is the result. We've got into the end of the season. We're tossing a lot of coins on people.
It does appear that we have gone into a series of reverse gears at exactly the time.
Oh, when you don't need to.
Other clubs are all saying, right, we're wading in here. You know,
we're going for
it. Who would play 5-6 games more than other teams, they can still do it. They can still get top spot quite easily.
I think Stockport will nick it. I've got to be honest. I think Stockport will nick it.
But Stockport will level with us, right? And they've done what they've done, and Stockport, Chesterfield, Hartlepool, the league clubs like ourselves in that top 6-7, most have suddenly hit the accelerator. Our brakes have been slammed on. We've gone into reverse gear, and we are going backwards. It's an interesting point, and clearly everyone sends their condolences to Ben for the loss of his grandparent. I've gone on record many times as saying the group of players that were relegated are one of the most toxic bunch of bad apples I've ever seen in my professional career in football, working in clubs spanning over 30 years. This group of players are not.
No.
This group of players are not. And I think whatever at the minute, like you say, they've gone from being the best to the worst. There is enough in this group of players managed correctly to finish in one of the top 7 positions. Without a doubt. And there will be peaks and there will be troughs. I'm hoping we'll have had our trough. You would like to think we will get 3 points against Altrincham. And then we can kick on again with those games in hand. I think there's enough there. And do you know what? You'd also like to think at the back of the minds of people like Doyle, O'Brien, Slocum, after the debacle at Wembley last year against Harrogate, there's an opportunity to reset the clock. You'd like to think that Connell Rawlinson, named player of the season, not involved in the playoffs at all, will be saying, right, I've got a point to prove here. I missed out last year. This year I'm doing it. And we hear a lot of at the minute about video analysis tactics, mentality, emotion. There are enough things I would like to think that this group of players can draw on to haul themselves out of this slump and go on a run, win the last 2 or 3. Win 2 or 3 playoff games against the odds, because they're capable of doing it. And we haven't gone on a run of 7-8 wins all season. I genuinely believe this group can do that. Quite clearly at the minute, we've got our problems. We gave it our all, and I genuinely felt sorry for each and every person at Torquay. But the fact remains, when they get reduced to 10 men, we should see that game out. We should see that game out. Their heads should drop after they get their big burly forwards sent off, yet they nicked it. And I was very, very worried last night. I said to people who I know, we will get beat at Eastleigh, because we kind of summoned up a bit against Torquay and we give it a go, one of the chat messages, and we got undone in quite heartbreaking style. And I thought, I don't think we'll summon that up. And I would disagree with you regards last night's performance. I don't think it was particularly good. I don't think it was bad. But I thought it was an atypical performance in which you lose the game and you say you're a bit unlucky. I thought we were a broken team in the last 15, 20 minutes. Just hope Ian, Morris, galvanise everyone, And I know, I'm sure he doesn't mean it like this, but I'm not sure studying the videos hard, whatever that means, helps us turn it around. Dave Woolley, mentality, emotion, motivation, all stem from the manager's attitude. I think that's a very good, a very good post, a very good post. And clearly you need the technical side, but I want to see some of that mentality, emotion, motivation. Thoughts? On the balance between the technical approach and mental resolve, emotion, motivation.
I mean, it's very, very difficult, isn't it? I mean, managers can scream and shout and rant and rave, or they can be as quiet as a mouse. At the end of the day, as soon as players cross that white line, it's pretty much out of their hands. I think
I disagree totally.
Yeah, but you see, but I'm trying to put in my mind as a player in terms of confidence, fragility. As soon as the first goal went in last night, it's a confidence thing. They were just shattered. Played so well, 45, 50 minutes, whatever. Conceded the first goal, first shot on target, confidence gone. I don't think there's personally, however much you rant and rave. I mean, if you remember rightly, Neil was never a big ranter or raver either.
Sam Allardyce, Neil Warnock, Steve Cottrell, Jimmy Cyril, Howard Wilkinson, all coaches and managers who have delivered promotions to, well, probably the only ones that have delivered promotion to Notts in the last 40 years.
Yeah. So
none of them are shrinking violets.
But I think if you're talking in terms of, we're talking about today's game now.
Yeah, Neil Warnock's doing all right at Middlesbrough.
Yeah, I know. I would agree with that. But I generally think the way the game is going, that the passion of what you have perhaps seen from managers in the past is already starting to dissipate. I mean, there's not really many managers out there. I know you mentioned Neil Warnock and Allardyce.
Your beloved Liverpool, is Jurgen Klopp not a passionate motivator?
Well, he's not doing too good at the minute, is he?
Oh, no, bloody! You're not going to join in. You're not going to say sack him now, are you? You're not going to.
No. But he can. And he's regarded as one of the best motivators in the game. I watched this against Newcastle. What happened in the final 10, 15 minutes? Liverpool looked frightened to death. Couldn't get out. And you've got one of the best motivators in world football on the touchline. Can't help him. Because there's nothing he can do. You can switch things up. You can move players around. But as soon as that mentality, and I've seen it happen so many times, and it happened in the relegation season, once you're on that pit, it's almost like it envelopes everybody. And it's almost envelopes, yeah. Envelopes everybody.
Envelope's what you get your P45 in.
But do you know what I mean? It's almost like it becomes very, very difficult once that mentality sort of infects. It's like a virus. Players drop another 10 yards. Midfielders drop another 10 yards. Next thing you know, you're all sat outside your penalty area. And that happens. And it doesn't matter how much a manager can scream, get out, get out, get out. It just becomes I think it becomes a natural instinct. And I think that's what Notts are going through at the moment. As soon as the first goal goes in, as soon as Torquay scored at the weekend, even when they were down to 10 men, I'm thinking it's going to be a tough 10 minutes because the momentum shifted. It didn't help that the subs that we brought on didn't make the team any stronger. We lost the forward momentum. So good in the first half. So
before people accuse me of bashing Ian Burchnall, those substitutions were basically enforced. Jim O'Brien couldn't carry on, had to come off. Alex Lacey, so I want to be fair and balanced here.
Exactly. So, and listen, and a lot of those players he's brought on were obviously Regan Griffiths, Lewis Knight. Couldn't turn around on the bench and have somebody of Jim O'Brien's experience on the bench behind him to bring on. Didn't have another experienced centre half that he could have thrown on behind him. Yeah, how old? Regan, 20. Lewis Knight, 22. In a big game. Huge in terms of the context at the top of the table. So, and I just genuinely believe it is a mentality thing, and unfortunately, with this group at the moment, as a good group and how united they are, I just think when something goes against them, and it, like last night, the first shot on target for Eastleigh, everything then becomes frantic and a little bit crazy and a little bit chaotic because they're so desperate to get back into a game that all of a sudden the shape starts to break and you can see it. If you compared the first half, the shape of the first half team to what happened after they conceded, chalk and cheese. So I think at the moment, I genuinely believe first goal on Saturday will be absolutely massive. If Notts get it, fingers crossed, I think they're going to win it. But listen, there's some of the problems that have been going on throughout the course of the season, the conceding from crosses, the conceding from set pieces. I mean, this has been a problem that's been blighted us all season. It's not new. And we for whatever reason, and I can't put. I've been watching the game. I can't put my finger on a reason why we really struggle with that. It's mystifying. It's not as if we lack players who haven't got the heart and desire to win headers. Look at Ben Turney, look at Connor Rawlinson, look at Mark Ellis. They are three good, rugged centre halves. Alex Lacey. It doesn't seem to matter whichever. I honestly find it so strange. I find it really strange. But yeah, it's a huge game in terms of the context of the table. I mean, I really hope, just for everybody's mood, that we win on Saturday, because I feel really sorry for the supporters at the moment, because Notts have really been through the mill, and it felt like after last season in the playoff, I know we didn't win it, but it felt like that we could go on and really surge for that top position this year. But it just hasn't happened, and as I've said, I put that pretty much solely at the players that the club has recruited. We've just been left well short, unfortunately. If I look at some of the players that are in our team, and if I say to myself, would they get into a Stockport team? Would they get into, would Stockport want to come and sign any of our players, bar Callum Roberts and Carl Wootton? In terms of the attacking positions, I'm not sure they would. You want the players that everybody else wants, and unfortunately, we don't have enough of those. We've got projects, players who may come good in 2 or 3 years' time. I mean, the one thing that I would say to the owners is that's fine. If the model is you want to sell a few players for a few quid, but I tell you now, you will have a statue built if you get Notts promoted to the Football League. What do you want to be remembered for? You want to be remembered for having a model that chucked up a few diamonds in the rough and you sold them on for a few quid and they're going on playing in the Championship but Notts are still back in the National League? Or do you want to be remembered as the people who took Notts County back to the Football League and we become known as the world's oldest professional football league club again? I know what I'd choose, but it's not my money.
Let's just get a few final observations. Ian Baggett, maybe they should hire a motivational coach to inspire belief. MF25 agreed. If players had been taking some of the many chances we've been creating, I don't think half as many people would be upset with Burchnall. I think everybody agrees it's a results business. Anything else, as Jimmy Cyril would say, is gossip, you know.
I mean, some of the chances there. Sorry, I mean, sorry.
Sure.
I mean, I'd be really worried if Carl Wootton wasn't getting opportunities. I think that's, as a striker, you know, you do miss him. Fact of life. You get chances, you miss him, you score him. If he was going through games where he was having 2 or 3 games, 4-game spell where he wasn't getting on any opportunities, and that was happening a while ago, but he's getting the chances again. And I'm convinced that he will score. He will get back on the score sheet again. But, you know, I think we've got to remember that he's only 20. He's still learning the game. He's still learning.
MF25, you could tell the game was over when Eastleigh scored, to be honest. Pythagorean need a tall Bishop Rose type to add height to defend set pieces. MF25, it was the same in the relegation season. Once teams think balls into the box are a weakness, they will pump it in as often as possible, and eventually you will concede. John Pearl, Chesterfield have recruited 3 experienced players in the last fortnight. Notts must do the same. Leigh Brearley, there's one thing we all do. That's love our club. We just want the best for the club. These debates are so good. Current high-ranking players and IB should really attend 1 or 2. Richard Hawksworth, brilliant show again, lads. Leigh doing a great impression of Kenny Rogers is my highlight.
Can't sing like you.
Zedo, Chesterfield did that whilst other players furloughed that we as taxpayers are paying for. Just wrong. Ethically, clearly there is an argument. Legally, they presumably are on watertight ground. Elvis Bott play 4-4-2, drop Wootton to the bench and start Knowles and Knight go with pace. Knowles and Knight play together when Wootton was out and we scored 4 goals. Let's wrap up because it's been a good debate tonight.
Are we wrapping up already? I could carry on. I've got nothing else to do unless watch on.
Are Liverpool not playing in the Champions League tonight?
No, well, come on, mate. Come on, mate. No, it's Paris Saint-Germain and Man City tonight, isn't it?
I know it's one of them. Yeah, I know it's one of them. I mean, you see, I don't like talking about next season in the National League because there is still so much to play for this season. But let's hypothetically.
So people want us to continue. Look.
No, PSG are right. Okay, let's do hypothetical. All right. Do you think we would have a better chance of going up next season than we have had this season?
You always save the best questions to last, don't you?
I was all ready to wrap up. You said carry on. So
no, I don't mind carrying on. It could have hit me with an easy. Right, okay. If Stockport don't go up, they will be a huge force next season.
Yeah.
I still think they'll nick the title this year. I think they'll nick it. They're in such good form at the moment. They brought Madden in, he's scoring goals. Wherever they're playing up front seems to be scoring goals. I know Reed, Bell or Reed's got a couple.
Well, they're going to have 2 bites, aren't they? Because if they don't get automatic, then they're clearly going to be in the playoffs.
Yeah. So I hope, and Ollie Holt will love me for saying this.
Yes, we've had Ollie on. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I hope they go up, because next year, if they stay down, you'd expect them to probably get rid of whoever's not done much from this season on the pitch and have another splurge of transfer spending and go out and get some really good players again. So I think I want them out of the way. But in saying that, you've got Grimsby coming down, who've just been, who I think, obviously already been relegated, but they've got new owners coming in.
Is that going? Because presumably it's not the Alex Main mob.
No, it's I can't remember the guy's name now, but that's apparently going through next week.
Right. Okay.
So they're going to come down. What are they going to do? The first thing that they're going to do, if I'm the new Grimsby owners, right, you want the fans on your side. So how's the best way to get fans on your side? You invest in the squad. And they've got a manager in Paul Hurst who's been out this league before and done it before. So they're another big threat. Southend, not really too sure. I think they're definitely going to come down. They seem to be in a bit of a mess off the pitch.
Yeah.
So not really sure about them. But then Wrexham, takeover, Ryan Reynolds. You watch them spend money in the summer. And there'll be another team who really invest heavily in the squad. Chesterfield. Halifax under Pete Wild don't have a lot of money, but he does a fantastic job there. He's recruited really well.
Hartlepool?
And of course, Hartlepool. And even then, what about Sutton if they stay down? Proven to be a really tough team to beat this year. And I said when we played them earlier on in this year, in fact, I tweeted, I said they will be up there this year. So well organised. And do you know what? They don't do anything that's really big and clever. 4-4-2, two really quick wingers, two good centre forwards, two good centre halves, and Rob Milsom in midfield has been really good for them this year by all accounts. So, and they've got a style, but they've got all the things in the right places. Quick wingers, go at you. Bugill's a clever centre forward. So, if they stay down, even if Torquay stay down, you think Gary Johnson's been out this league before, knows what it's all about, put together a good side at Torquay. I think next year, I actually think next year will be harder for Notts than would they be in the League Two. I honestly believe that. With some of the sides that are coming down and with the money that's going to be being thrown around. If you look at Chesterfield, what they're doing, I mean, going to sign Danny Rowe. I mean, I covered Lincoln when Danny Rowe came to Lincoln. Really good player. Absolute foot-like attraction. I've never seen a player belt a ball as hard as he can. Scores goals. Really good signing for them. And then they've got Asante to come back. Another really good centre forward. We're talking two high caliber centre forwards there, and that's what we're going to have to be prepared to be dealing against. If we don't get out this year, that's what's waiting for us next year. So that's why when I talk about recruitment, we cannot afford to do or afford to repeat the same mistakes that we made last summer. Next year, there has to be a focus on players who are proven, have pedigree, and have the ability to compete. I want us to be in a position marching into next season where I'm comparing us to the other sides and their players, and I'm going, right, we've got the best winger. We've got Callum Roberts, best winger out of Stockport, Grimsby. Right, we've got a centre forward. I think, he's better than anything that those sides, they're better than what Chesterfield have got. They're better than what Wrexham have got. That's the position I want to feel and I want to be in as a journalist covering it, so I can say, I think Notts have got a really good chance this year of going up. Wasn't quite able to do that. I mean, someone asked me last summer what I thought, and I said I thought Notts would get top three, but a lot of things had to fall into place because a lot of the players that we brought in were unknown quantities. If we'd have gone into last season with a Paddy Madden up front, Callum Roberts fit, the kid at Barnet who I really like is Mason Ephron Clark, the winger. I still don't know what he's doing there, but really good player. And you're going into the season and you're looking at those and you're thinking, right, do you know what? What a team. Really fancy us this year. And that's what we're going to have to do in the summer. That's whatever happens this year, we are going to have to go out and sign players who I think need to be in the peak of their careers. There can't be any more projects. I don't want to see any more of that. Don't want to see 5, 6, 7, 19, 20-year-olds flirting in and around the first team. I think it's too many. I think you need a core group or a strong group of players 25 to 32, been there, good pedigree, proven it in the past, get them on board, and away you go. And that needs to be the transfer policy. That might not fit in with the owner's model in terms of wanting to sell players on and develop young players, but it's what you want to be remembered for. Because I'm telling you now, if we're not in a position where we're challenging next season, what do you think is going to happen? What do you think the fans are going to say? Because all the fans are bothered about is promotion. It's all they want. I bet if I went to a supporter and said, right, okay, here's a scenario for you. You can find 5 or 6 of these gems and you're selling them on at 250 grand, 500 grand a pop here. Would you have that money in the bank, or would you rather be back in the Football League where we feel we belong because it's such a big club and the history and the status? I guarantee every fan wouldn't give a monkey's as long as you got them back in the league. Couldn't give them 2 monkeys who plays for the club, whether they're young and are a project and have got ability and sort of, they just want players who can win games. And that's what they've got to do.
Very good. I went on record. The best chance this club has got of getting back into the Football League was getting promotion in its first season in the National League. And there was a view among some fans when we missed out at Wembley. Oh, well, we'll be stronger next year. We'll acclimatise a bit more. Always my view that this year would be harder to get promoted than last year. Each year you are out of the league, it gets a little bit harder. Bit of combination of financing, bit of combination of not being able to compete as effectively for the pool of players that you need to get out. You know, there are certain types of players, aren't there? The Rooney and that sort, that are well made to get clubs out of the National League.
Yeah, and nobody's saying you have to keep them. Nobody's saying that you have to keep them beyond the National League. Just get out this league first, then make a decision.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Right. So, yeah, exactly. So one of the reasons I bang on so much about we've got to get in the playoffs is, for me, getting in the playoffs, however much fans might laugh at what we're doing at the minute, us getting in the playoffs is the best chance we have got of getting back into the Football League for the next 5 years. I think next year, 10 times harder for us to get promoted. For all sorts of reasons.
Oh, 100%.
All sorts of reasons.
100%.
You know, we're talking about our points total at the minute.
So I'm just turning the light on because we've been going on that long. I was plunged into darkness.
Yeah. We don't go up this season. As I said at the start of the show, I fear we'll be looking at National League North over our shoulders. Because you're absolutely right in what you say about the recruitment. But to get those players, it's not easy.
No,
because
it's not.
We will be behind Grimsby and Southend straight off the bat, right? We will be behind Hartlepool, Chesterfield, Wrexham, whoever, right? Because if we've drifted out the playoffs, we will be viewed as a fading force. We will be viewed as appointing a lame duck head coach. That is how it will be perceived. Chesterfield, if they don't go up this season, James Rowe will be fated and all the rest of it, right? He might not go up, and he might have a bloody nightmare and get the sack in October. And our head coach might be ruddy brilliant. It's going to be very, very, very difficult. And the recruitment policy that you are advocating, I don't think that is a recruitment policy that is being defined by Richard Montague in conjunction with the owners. And I think that probably Ian Burchnall and Maurice Ross, when push comes to shove, will have a different view of recruitment to Richard Montague. Now, that is why I am very, very worried. If Ian makes the playoffs, position neutral, he's done his job. For me, Ian Burchnall's first job is to get into the playoffs. Accountability and responsibility. Nothing to do with Neil Ardley now. The moment he walked in, if Ian Burchnall had won that semi-final and we won the trophy, I promise you, as he would have every right to, Ian Burchnall would have on his CV won the FA trophy within 2 months of joining my new club, Notts County. And he'd have every right to do that, even though he only won the semi-final and the final, because he is the gaffer from the moment that he walks into the door. So I keep hearing people saying, oh, this is all Neil Ardley. It doesn't matter. Ian Burchnall would have done his homework on this football club before he walked in the door, or he certainly should have done. He certainly should have done. And I'm sure he did. So if Ian gets us into the playoffs, position neutral, it's where Neil would have probably got us. We miss out. Okay. That instantly quells things. Season tickets will go all right. Yeah. Job is okay. He's okay. He's won as many matches as he's lost, because effectively he's going to have to win, a minimum 5 of the last 8 or 9, I would have said. Minimum to get the playoffs. So then we're at position neutral. And if he's got a few wins in the bank, he's got a bit more clout with Richard Montague and the owners. I know what I'm doing. I got you into the playoffs. I need player X. We don't really fit the bill. I need player X.
That's
because if we end up, I've seen this so many times working in professional football, right? If we end up 10th, Richard Montague and the owners, our approach, Ian has very little say in the matter because he hasn't won games. That's how you know how it works. Managers get results, they flex their muscles. Managers don't. That is why we had a hybrid model in the summer. If we had gone back up to the Football League, right, do you think we would have signed Eli Salmon, Ruben Rodriguez, even though the owner said we think these are great money ball signings? Because Neil would have said, not over my dead body, right? I'm calling the shots. I've got you promoted. I want the Reeves. I want the others, right? Let's be honest. Casper Sloth. I'm pretty sure Neil didn't fancy him. Owners signing. Casper Sloth having the strop with Neil about travelling down to Dover to do a bit of training but not being involved, massively played into Neil's hands. He'll have engineered that. Confrontation, call it what you will. Casper Sloth, I'm not going. Hang on a minute. If you don't go, you're on your bike. Don't question my authority. Casper Sloth goes straight into the trap. He'll go straight into the trap. And that is one of those players I suspect Neil didn't really want, gone out the door.
But again, we're talking about,
we're not talking about the past league. We're talking about, we both agreed, recruitment holds the key
Yes, it's 9/10
his chances next season. And you have quite rightly elaborated a philosophy, right? Dave Challoner, all the others, James Rowe, not rocket science. And I strongly suspect Ian and Maurice Ross will be in that camp as well. But how, on what terms was Ian recruited? This is our model. You will be our head coach. And I foresee friction. I foresee challenges. It was a hybrid model this year for Neil, wasn't it? He got some of the players he wanted. He got other players, choose one of them three. Well, I wouldn't normally choose any of them, but I'll take him. Yeah. And that hasn't fundamentally helped the club become any stronger.
No, we've got one player's made the team better.
And to an extent, Chesterfield, Hartlepool, those clubs are getting their ducks in a row, not only for the promotion challenge this season, they're getting their ducks in a row for next season. We are a long way behind that. Where's the core of our team that will be the core of our team next year?
Well, a lot of them out of time. I mean, ideally, what they should be doing now, and I'm pretty sure this will be happening, is they should be identifying players now, either League Two players or National League players who are either are going to be out of contract or in the middle of contract negotiations, and try to identify the best ones. But my worry is there is a lack of football expertise on the board. Do you know what I mean?
That's not a problem if you assign, mandate and delegate responsibility to a fully qualified football department in whom you trust. For all I know, the Hartlepool chairman ain't got a bloody clue how to run a football club. If he's got Dave Challoner, right?
Yeah.
Let's be honest, Chesterfield are run by a trust. You know my views on a trust, right? But they've got the nous to put in James Rowe, who clearly in the short term this season has been a revelation for them.
Yeah. But I think there's a danger, Paul, of and I see this. We're trying to reinvent the wheel.
I totally agree.
Football, really, the grand scheme of things, is a fairly simple game. Just people make it a lot more difficult than what it needs to be.
Don Masson, football is a simple game, complicated by people.
Yeah, and it's absolutely bang right. I think we're trying to reinvent the wheel, and there's a lot of talk about transitions and all this malarkey. At the end of the day, you're there to win games, and it's not,
You sound like me now.
So I've been hanging around with you two. Do you know what I mean? It's not like if you were to go back, what Alex Ferguson was achieving with Manchester United isn't any different to what people want to achieve now. It's not. Players may be fitter, may have more access to more medical science and that, but the fundamental aspect always remains the same.
You had a go at me earlier for dredging about Wilkinson, Jimmy Cyril, Steve Cottrell, and Sam Allardyce for living in the past.
No, but that's what I'm saying. I'm saying it's going away. And what I'm saying there was, I'm saying, unfortunately, we are seeing coaches now. You look, the characters are going, aren't they? There's no two ways about that.
Well, if you've watched Andy Woodman on that Under the Cosh podcast, who's become manager of Bromley, he is certainly a character. I've got to tell you, he just got the job at Bromley.
Yeah. So, I think there's too many people want to make it complicated. If you look at what Stockport did, they didn't make it complicated, did they? They just went and spent money on Paddy Madden, and everybody knew that was going to be a good signing.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's not difficult, I don't think. Getting the players in, I appreciate if you're on a tight budget, is the hard part. Yeah, for sure.
It isn't difficult. We all kind of know the right players, but getting them to come to you rather than somewhere else is not always easy.
And Yeah, but I know you said that that we'd fade behind Chesterfield, Wrexham, and all that. I don't agree with that. You know, I think if you put, let's say, player earns X 1,500 quid a week, and everybody puts 1,500 quid a week on the table, Wrexham, Chesterfield, you mean to tell me that player would turn down the opportunity to come and play at Meadow Lane, the oldest professional football club in the world? I think it all comes down to money, mate. I've got to be honest. Because people say, "Oh,
that's I agree with. That's I agree with. Every year we are out of the Football League. Our stock, and I speak as a Notts fan, our stock, our cachet, is weakened by 5% every year. Because we were last a Football League club 2 years ago, 3 years ago. Grimsby are the newer kid on the block. If Chesterfield get to the playoff final, or whoever gets to the playoff final, and we're 10th, these factors, I think, look, the reason Paddy Madden has gone to Stockport is because they've wedged him in on a long-term contract.
Yeah, three and a half grand a week, 31 years old, yeah.
We all know that. And fair play to them. You might argue they've also played the card on the face of it at exactly the right time.
Yes.
Because they've got to a point in the season. This is my point about Notts, right? They've got to a point in the season where playoffs, we should be all right. We can give it a real blast now. We have gone into the fourth stage of reverse gear.
Which is what I thought the owners would have done with Ian. Do you know what I mean? It's like Simon Russ came in, they've given him Paddy Madden, they've signed this kid from Fleetwood. James Rowe's gone in, they've given him everybody he wants, they've given him the best tools in the army. Ian's come in, and they give him a 20-year-old midfielder from Crewe.
I think that's the model they've told him they're going to work on.
So that's the difference for me. If I'm looking at it, if you look at all those managers that you mentioned, you know, when you're saying Simon Rusk and James Rowe have, you know, look at how well they've been backed in the transfer market as soon as they came in. I mean, I thought when Ian was going to come in, and when he did come in, I thought, right, the owners are going to go out and address, or, you know, the recruitment team are going to go out and address these glaring holes, like, i.e. lack of wide players. Let's go out and get a centre forward to help Carl Wootton. You know, that's what I thought they would have done, and just gone, right, here you go, Ian, we've brought you in. There you go.
It's a very good point you raise. I remember, you may have asked the question, or it might have been Charlie. You asked Ian, are you going to bring new players in? He said on his opening day, I'm sure, or the day after, no. He actually, so he had clearly been told at the interview, there's no new players. Because the only reason we got the young lad in the centre of midfield was because Doyle got injured. The only reason we got Luke Steele in is because we got a goalkeeper injured. And if you remember rightly, on the day Neil was sacked, or whatever it was, they extended the loan period of Tyler Golden.
I mean, that was I didn't understand that.
So clearly, Ian Burchnall don't rate him that highly, and he's now gone back.
I don't see that was another strange one. Another strange one, wasn't it? You know, we had Dion Kelly Evans,
best player this season.
Yeah, I spoke to him last night briefly after the game. He was devastated, bless him. But I think.
Did he kick you?
No, I hate to be a left winger playing against him, because he didn't half fly. What was that? What was that game?
Tackle? Did you see the tackle? Bottom end. I think it was second half. No, it might just before half time, where he's gone in and he's 5'5", and he somehow managed to whack their 6'2" goalkeeper and he's also whacked with a 6'2" centre half at the same time. And they've both gone down and needed treatment, and then off he's got, and he's just trotted back down to the point.
Yeah, I mean, but
from one tackle, both decked out on the floor.
Yeah, I mean, that's the sort of mentality that you need you need at this level as well. You need a mixture of that. I mean, I remember, it's interesting because it's funny how careers pan out, but when I used to cover Gainsborough, very early on, Gainsborough Trinity, yeah, and Phil Stant was obviously there as a spell when John Reams came in, and they spent a lot of money. But before that was a guy called Paul Mitchell, and he'd been at Worksop Town. Career ended early. I think he broke his leg, and that was it. And so he went into management. Really good guy. And it's funny, and as time has gone on, and he could always spot a player. And I remember asking him once, so I was just young, keen, just wanted to get in, and it's always stayed with me. He said, when you want to sign a player, he said they need two things. They need to be able to do two things. They need to be able to dig, and they need to be able to play. He says, because you can get players who can play but can't dig, and you can get players who dig and can't play. No good. You need to get them both. Do you know where Paul Mitchell is now? Yeah. He's head of recruitment at Sheffield United.
Right. On that note,
yeah,
because we've done an hour and a half, I might watch a bit of Champions League. Now then, this is funny. Let's end on this one. I don't know whether it's true, but it's funny. MF25. It's about time Knox updated Dion's height on the website, by the way. It does him a disservice, claiming he's 5'10". He must have bloody big disco platform shoes to hit 5'10". Right?
Oh, what a player, though. I love him. He's brilliant. Great kid.
Hey, Leigh, look, top man, go and wash your hair or whatever it is. Thank you very much. We've got a good session tonight. I feel better now. We've got it all a bit out of our system. I really, 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 really hope, and for me, there can be no excuses. 3 points Saturday. Couple of other results go our way. We've got a couple of midweek games that others haven't. It gives a different complexion. And I just really, 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 really hope, I don't care, unlike some people, if we don't get out of our half for 89 minutes and do a Torquay and score a 97th minute winner with a goal that may or may not have crossed the line. I don't care. We need a win. We need a win. And then let's see what that does. Let's see what that does. Now, Altrincham have already contacted you, haven't they? So they are allowing you in, yeah?
I don't know. I've not spoken. Right. The BBC is all Charlie. They're treated like royalty, aren't they? Apart from Torquay didn't treat them like royalty. But I haven't been in contact with them yet. I will do tomorrow as a matter of priority. I went to Altrincham many years ago when Damon Reeves was playing from really good centre forward. So it's been. I tell you who else was there as well. Kid who's now at Middlesbrough. His dad was the chief executive. Duncan Wootton. Yeah, really good player. And I watched him play non-league. Brilliant player.
What you do. You just say you're Simon Stone, friend of the show, BBC. It's his local club. He goes there. So just say you're Simon Stone, and the band will let him in. So just got a bit of dodgy ID. Shave your head, right, and you'll get in as Simon Stone.
Simon's much better looking than me.
To be honest, it's a bit of a close run thing, really. Right, on that note, good to have you, my friend. Let's all hope we can be, the world looks a more positive place. And as the cynics have, of course, suggested, the football social media boycott this weekend may be a little bit well timed, perhaps. The real irony, of course, is we win 6-0. And, of course, Notts are taking part in this social media boycott, so we can't enjoy it on the social media. But anyway, Leigh, my friend, thank you very, very much indeed. We'll see you next week.
Take care.